As far as hacking, I think it was Russia.
After spending months challenging the intelligence findings that Russia meddled in the election, President-elect Trump says he now believes that Russia did, in fact, hack the U.S. That made for some tough timing for his nominee to head the State Department, ExxonMobil's Rex Tillerson, who was grilled on Capitol Hill over his relationship with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin.
Is Vladimir Putin a war criminal?
I would not use that term.
So what is and what should be Trump's relationship with Russia? Could this be leading us on a path toward a new Cold War? Rebecca Lissner is a national security expert from the Council on Foreign Relations. It's nice to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, the last few days dominated by conversations of Russia. Certainly the Tillerson hearing, the president's-elect's first news conference. BuzzFeed basically pulling a WikiLeaks and doing a document dump, and then CNN reporting that, in fact, the president and the president-elect had been notified that this information existed, so notification at the highest levels. At this point, what are your concerns about the president-elect's relationship with Russia?
Well, I think the primary concern that has come out of the past few months is the extent to which President-elect Donald Trump has been privileging the assertions of Russian President Vladimir Putin over the findings of the U.S. intelligence community. Now, his news conference was significant in that he acknowledged for the first time that it likely was Russia who perpetrated the hack against the Democratic National Committee. But he then went on to say that, well, it could have been someone else and we don't really know. And
Lots of people hack.
Right, exactly. And again, and similarly, you know, when the memo came out, he was very quick to reiterate the Kremlin's line that, you know, it wasn't, you know, none of it was true. And so the extent to which he continues to sort of appropriate Kremlin talking points, even as he is soon to be the president of the United States, is very concerning.
He seems to have, in some ways, also like a personal bromance, or at least a goal or a hope or an ideal in his head of a bromance with Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
But of course, the official relationship with Russia mostly centers around the U.S. and Russia's sort of intersection in NATO.
That's absolutely right. It's not uncommon for political leaders to think that their relationship with another foreign leader can yield good results, but often those relationships fall victim to the core national security interests and the extent to which those either converge or diverge. In the case of Trump and Putin, that really is the million-dollar question, is whether, when it comes down to it, and there is a divergence of interest between the U.S. and Russia, whether Donald Trump is going to stand up for American interests or whether this so-called bromance is actually going to interfere or obstruct his ability to do that.
Rex Tillerson, two things that I noticed from his testimony. One, he was really pressed about stronger sanctions for Russia. He demurred a lot on that.
Yes.
And number two, clearly concerned about getting on Putin's bad side. What do you think the White House policy should be on Russia? More sanctions, fewer sanctions? Obviously, troops are headed to Germany to support NATO.
Sure. Well, you said NATO, and I think NATO is, you know, the most important thing that we need to keep in mind. The president-elect, over the course of the campaign, made some very troubling statements about his willingness to live up to our Article 5 guarantees to our NATO
very much
allies.
against NATO.
Yes, exactly. He said that, you know, our ability or our willingness to defend our allies will be conditional upon their defense spending. And even just introducing that element of conditionality undermines what should be a really unequivocal and unconditional commitment to defending our NATO allies. So that's a tremendous concern. Now, it is notable that Rex Tillerson in his confirmation hearing indicated that, you know, much greater support for the NATO alliance, but bolstering NATO will be absolutely critical for the next administration, you know, if we are to seek to preserve our interests in Europe.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.